Hey everybody, Nick Blazer here with another interview with another backgammon community star in Simon Barget. He runs the Backgammon Academy YouTube channel. I'm sure you've seen him in the UBC videos playing at his standard grandmaster level, right? Amazing backgammon player. Been playing for a while, and he teaches lessons too. And I got to meet him in Marbella about a little over a year ago. Super nice guy, and yeah, in all these interviews, I really like to kind of get people that are out there trying to create content and maybe grow the community online, and hopefully introduce all of you to to more people that are like active right now in whatever new backgammon is. So yeah, welcome Simon. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks very much. Just like I said, just honored to be um, on the channel. Happy to be on.
This makes me
Um,
funny to like bestow an honor of joining my my couple hundred subscriber YouTube channel, you
yeah,
know?
but
Yeah.
it's still yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, man. Well,
Um,
well, it's an honor to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I guess a nice place to start off would just kind of be I don't know, like how long have you been playing backgammon and everything like that? A lot longer than me. I remember we talked about that, but like when did you get started?
So this is a bit of a roundabout way. I was asked to write an article for the UK BGF,
Okay.
and I didn't really know when I started, and until I started writing, then it focused my mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically, so what I wrote, well, I started when I was um, 19, and I was in Israel for a semester. I was studying.
Hmm.
And my roommate was an Iranian guy, and he claimed that his uncle had won the world championship.
Okay.
And like those was back in '94, so there was no was there internet? I don't know, but there was no Google, so you couldn't like look it up. This guy's name I always remember is Moise El Ganyan, the uncle's name.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't know. When you're younger, you're more credulous, and so I just thought I went around telling people that this guy's his uncle won the world championship. But anyway, the guy who claimed this was a really keen backgammon player, and he introduced me to it.
Okay.
And like on one of those wooden boards,
Yeah.
um, and then I started going to there was the equivalent of the UK BGF was called BIBA, BIBA.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And then that was a couple of years later. I went to my first backgammon tournament when I was about 21 in 1996.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just remember the excitement was just, the level was of excitement. I was just so excited to go to a tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. How many people are at that
I,
first tournament?
yeah, about 100, there were quite a few people in those days, like 100, maybe over 100.
Wow. Okay.
But I was just because I didn't know, I can't really put my finger on what was so exciting, but it was just, I suppose, the starting off factor that didn't really know what you were gonna find.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a backgammon tournament's exciting to be at for like competition itself is exciting, but just like a dice game too, you know, and like all the I guess the way that people like approach the board in the game and like everyone wants to win and the dice are going to decide who's going to win, but everyone feels like they're going to decide and it's just like this interesting energy when we play this game, you know?
Yeah.
Were you
I
already like aware of
think
that when you got started or
I
like
think that
yeah.
what I was in the back of my mind as I was just talking before. I
Yeah.
think I was probably no different now, but like very arrogant, thinking that I was better than everyone,
Yeah.
which I'm sure we all kind of have to suppress to different degrees. And so I think the excitement stemmed from the fact that I loved playing, but I also thought, well, I can really beat them. And I think I had
Mm.
jellyfish, just got jellyfish, so I kind of just copied what jellyfish did, and I was probably playing to a decent level.
Nice. Okay, okay. I
Well,
like I like it's still funny to me when I hear people it's usually not someone actually doing it, but like people describe just like that it would be boring to just copy what the bot does and does it that way as though that's like some trivial thing to do, right? Like I don't like what do you mean copy jellyfish and just do what it's doing?
Yeah.
Were you able to like record your matches and run them through that then at the time, or what was that like? Just practicing against it?
I don't think anyone recorded.
Okay, okay,
Like I'm trying to remember how people would have what they would have used because
yeah,
there were no smartphones, so I suppose video cameras.
okay,
I don't remember. I didn't pay special attention to that, but I don't think people were.
yeah, man. That sounds like is that like 25, 30 years you've been playing then since the 90s? You said.
Yeah, so 94 I started. I think when I
Nice.
was much younger, I played with my uncle,
Yeah, yeah,
but that was when I was about 8 or 9, and then never played again.
yeah. I remember we talked about that at some point. Like I think on commentary, or mentioned I'd only been playing 7 years, and you're like, oh yeah, I forget you're like new. You just start to remember things about a
Yeah,
game and not have to think about
I
those as
saw
much. And that might
I
like,
saw the
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
no, sorry, I saw 7 years on your on the blurb for the World Championship match. So you've got to win twice. Is that
I do
still
against
amazing?
a past champion of 2020, and yeah, it is like I like it's just happened 1 week at a time kind of thing, right? But it's like incredible the like how did I outlast 510 people or whatever in this crazy tournament, you know? I've never been that deep in that big of a field before. So it's
You're
yeah.
you're the one. You are the one.
I've got some world-class luck going my way, man. I think my win rate right now on studio, I forget if it's set in the tournament on WBIF or what, but I think it's like 80% of my matches or something like that.
In just from the World Championship.
I presumably maybe I've played some other matches here and there on there, but I saw some like win figure of 80% on there, and I was like, yeah, that's not tenable. Yeah.
It always fascinates me. Like when we play a match, I guess we always think that we win because we play better. But then
Hmm.
there's obviously the luck factor, which is
Yeah,
huge, but it's sort of cognitively dissonant or however.
yeah,
You can't really believe the luck. It's like I bet on sports a little bit, and when I win, I think, oh, it's because I bet right. But
yeah.
obviously you don't know that. You
Sure.
don't know what the luck element is.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
love
then
conversations like these. I think humans do think this way. I consider myself closer to the robot class in this particular arena. But to me, I've never thought that. I've never thought I can't think of a single match where I felt like, yep, yeah, I outplayed them, I beat them, and that's why I won this. Like it's
right, but
still like there's dice every
I
time.
think that there are people that are strong players. I get the sense that they no disrespect. I mean, it might be a good way to think. Maybe it's a constructive way to think, but they
Yeah.
sort of believe that they win because
Yeah.
they just like they played all the right moves or something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not.
I think they're both out there. And I think no, I really
That's
do.
funny.
I think there's really good examples of people that use that. If you truly believe that making the best decisions is going to lead to a win, right, in this like linear way and not like more often and like I know I need to do this. Like I do believe that if I make good decisions more often, that I will win more often in the very long run, right? But then an individual match, I'm just kind of like whatever. Someone flipped a coin.
Yeah,
But
it's like you have to
yeah,
like burn the paper and just throw it away and hope that
right. Yeah.
that
But
it flutters back.
the people that believe it mattered for that one match, like I think there's an energy behind that that can motivate you to make sure you play your absolute best in every match. And if you make a mistake, you're never going to make it again because that was the one that cost you in that. And it's like this, it turns into this like cognitive cycle that I think also allows some people to like find motivation and play their best. I mean, I'm just not one of those people. To me, that's just stress. You know, like I want to show up and play my best backgammon and learn from it, but I don't want to like whip myself for the thing I didn't know in the match, you know? So it's kind of like easier for me to just like let that go and be like, that was the best I could play then, and tomorrow that'll be different, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
I, I, yeah. I, I'm thinking of people that. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But it's just an interesting
It is super interesting.
dynamic. If it is out there, it's an
Yeah.
interesting sort of thought. Um,
Sure.
groove that some people maybe have. Which,
Yeah.
like for me, maybe I'm at the wrong end of the spectrum. Actually, maybe this is a valid use of time if people are still
Yeah.
watching.
No,
But
I think it's great
what's
for coaching.
interesting is I think I'm I'm too pessimistic, and I'm kind of aware of that. So,
Okay.
for example, when I went to the World Championships, I didn't think I just thought there's no way I'm going to win. But I imagine that there are quite a few people that don't think that.
Mm.
I'm sure there are. There must be people, and then who maybe think they've got a good chance. But I can't get into my head how it's possible to think that when you basically know that you've got a maximum of, five, six, whatever it is. I don't know what the right figure is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe I need a little bit more of the um I don't know, belief or whatever you want to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think both you and I remember I feel like I've had conversations like this with Seb. He fluctuates all over the place too. So maybe it's a
Sure,
UK thing to
he's
just
in
be
the
very
yeah, he's
nihilistic
he's
about backgammon.
he doesn't have enough. It's not for me to really talk about him in public, but I would agree. He probably his level is play. There is a bit of a gap between his ability and his belief, or I don't know what the
Hmm.
right word is. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the conversations I've had with him are just also about to summarize it in a sentence, there's no way to realize your long-term expectation in backgammon in a lifetime. And like we're all trying to do this and all expecting like like that's just how it's going to work out, but there aren't enough
Yeah,
tournaments
but
to
if
play.
you're the guy that wins Monte Carlo twice, you're not making any complaints about
Sure, sure.
realizing you're longer. You're
There's
like,
some good
let's cut the
confirmation bias there,
expectation.
right? You're like, well, no, clearly you can, because I did it. So- but yeah, I guess so. An interesting seg with this though. So I think it seems like. Are you saying you're more on the side of like where would you place yourself in how much weight you put on decisions in a match and whether that leads to a victory or a loss? You know?
So I think that's a good question, and because I don't have a good sense of how much playing the right move in an X point match can impact or affect the result.
Yeah.
I tend to get more on the pessimistic side and think that, oh, well, the maximum possible percentage of winning against this guy is going to be like 70%, and 70% isn't enough. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to lose this 30% of the time. And so it just doesn't feel,
Yeah.
and I know people will go to take up chess. Yeah, maybe, but it just doesn't feel like enough, especially when you multiply 70 and 70. You're already an underdog to win two matches. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
49%.
Yeah.
So how do you
Yeah.
how do you spin that? Is that is that
Oh,
probability somehow wrong? I mean, is it just not, does it not when
no, it's
you
fantastic actually. I can help you with that. That's if you've like never done math on like a 64 player field or tried to I thought this way in true like American fashion. I was trying to figure out what like Calcutta teams are the best when you go to a tournament and buy those. You familiar with like Calcutta auctions at backgammon tournaments?
you might have to, I know I've heard the term Calcutta, but I
You
always forget what.
effectively take the whole player field and you put them into groups of like two players
Yeah,
or three players or four players, and then they auction them all off. And if your team
yeah,
wins, then you win something. So you're like picking horses, right? And the dilemma that they universally seem to present is they always have like these two-person teams of like two of the best people in the field, and then they'll have a lot of four-person teams of like random people that maybe you don't know, right? And you can look through those and try to figure out which of those four-person teams is better than another or something. But the question that I had was like my instinct immediately is like four horses has to be a ton better than two, right? But if you go through the math of that and give like not that big of like disparity in winning chances and say everyone on your four-person team is 45% to win and everyone is 55% in every match on your two-person team or something like this, right? Like represent real opposite ends of probably match winning chances. Um, the 55% players do a lot better, like maybe 10 times better. or
But
something
just
like
because of
this
the way it
because of how it
exponentially,
compounds. Yeah, if you think
yeah,
about 55 raised to the eighth power versus 45 raised to the eighth power. Or sorry, this is actually a decimal, right? So our 9/20ths and 11/20ths raised to the eighth power, like those numbers diverge
yeah,
quite a bit very quickly.
but isn't that? I mean, you probably want to start off having both teams as favorites, no? Because I'm maybe as soon as you make someone an underdog, then
Yeah, yeah,
like that seems like
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think this is what they're doing with the field is like breaking up. So maybe you have like a couple break even players and a couple
yeah,
underdogs or something in the four-person team, right?
yeah,
Could be something
yeah.
more like that. But I mean, really,
That seems to make sense. It seems, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
If
yeah,
you just play around with this math, then you can see how big the edge can be and how much bigger of a chance relatively the best player has. But then you're still right that like the best player can never expect to win a tournament, right? Like it's still something that
but if as
happens.
soon as you
Yeah.
lump him, so I'm thinking about
Yeah.
Sander, Wilcox,
Sure.
Zdeněk.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, almost everyone. Like who else? Who else got to the Benjamin Lund? He's
Yeah.
pretty good. Maybe
Yeah.
not in the set. When you add one player to one, and you make two, then you make three, and they're all kind of
Yeah.
maybe 65%. It's like what you're saying, I think. Then you
Yeah.
start to maybe have a chance of getting a winner from that field. But then
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was just coincident, whether that was just that's just how
Sure.
it played out. It's
Right. And there isn't any way to like know. You can run math on it and say what the expectation should be and do simulations. And I think this is what people like Alex Lehman are doing and Sander when they set like the
yeah,
betting lines and things like that
yeah.
too. I presume just the way they talked about
But
it on that
it's
Gambler
just
podcast, if
it,
you haven't seen
it
it, sounds like that, you know?
it's just like but it seems somehow that if someone's maybe it just depends on my mood, but let's say you're watching a 17-point match,
Hmm.
which I'm told you I was rewatching all the stuff from Monte Carlo, and then
Yeah.
so let's say you get someone that's going to play a 2.5, and then you get someone that's going to play a 7.5. It just feels like the 2.5 is just going to blow the guy off the board. But then
Hmm.
maybe that's just a mood thing, and how maybe if I was,
Yeah. I really
but
don't know.
the percentages don't stack up. They
Yeah.
don't mirror that. I think the percentage might be maximum 70. Well, that's quite high, but it's
Yeah.
still not.
Yeah, I think there's always like, I mean, there's a lot of different ways for a weaker player to win a match, right? Is kind of part of it too. It can just be like somehow we end up in a high cube situation where one game costs a lot, but then it can also be like somehow I just get lucky and roll over you every game in a row for 10 games in a row. And if we think about it, like this, like how lucky you have to be to win a match against a much better player is I don't think it's even as lucky as you have to be a very good player and win a tournament and dodge all these bullets. You know what I mean? So like I mean your 70-30 example really stuck out to me. It's like in the long run you're going to see a lot better results, but I mean you're also absolutely right along the way is that like a lot of times you're going to lose that match and it shakes out that way and the dice are going to decide, but you're just giving yourself more chances to win than your opponent is, right? And this is going to play out some way in the long term. I don't know. But yeah, I also haven't, like, I feel like the thing that sticks out to me when I watch a player, we'll say missing opportunities, playing like whatever their skill level is against like the best player and not like playing as good of a PR. Um, One thing I notice for sure is like you see them make a mistake, right? But then the next sequence you can often see may just like transpose the decision in a way where it was utterly irrelevant in that match, right? Or the other like classic example is if you're like choosing in
Mm.
your bear off between the 5-2 distribution and the 4-3, and you choose the 4-3 and you happen to roll a 4-3 next roll, well, now you've gained on your mistake in like a very large magnitude kind of way.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like these things
yeah,
happen all the time. We
yeah.
just like we change the path and the other path isn't the better path, but it could be this time, like
So
depending on what's coming. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, to sort of recapitulate in maybe a slightly different way. It's like I've often had a thought in the back of my mind, like, what is the okay, let's say you have like a classic middle game sort of blitzy, strong position and you cube.
Yeah.
What and then you win your 4 points. There seems to be like some sort of not hidden secret. I'm not really explaining myself very well, but like when I first started off, it seemed, at least to me in those days, that there was like um, a thing that players knew that they could get into attacking positions and then they could gammon someone on a two cube, and it would be like a someone going abracadabra with a magic wand.
Yeah.
And so, the question or the statement that I'm making um, is there those are the decisions those are the decisions that matter, like obviously the take pass to start with, but also managing to get yourself into scenarios where you can cube. So for example, you have a 2-1 from the bar and you play bar 23 and you hit 6 to 5,
Hmm.
assuming the guy's got a checker. And it's very important in order and you teach as well as I do. I look through people's matches. It's very important for someone to play bar 23 6 5 in order that a few moves down the line they can have made the 5 point and get into a position that they can send an attacking cube. And so I'm kind of
Mm.
wondering, is there, to what extent can you navigate your way into match winning by knowing that I'm going to do this, this, that, win my gammon on a two cube?
Yeah.
And to what extent can't you? To what extent is it just like you have to play the dice as they come? And I think maybe the answer is when you play a weaker player, you've got
Yeah.
much more ability to kind of weave the game in the direction that you want to weave it in.
Yeah. And this is like a whole area like of backgammon that I mean I'm like I just have conveniently ignored it because again like relatively new to the game, it's hard enough to figure out what is theoretically right in the game to me that I'm just going to keep trying to learn that. But I hear people talking like I mean of course the best player is talking all the time about in very large fields against like a broad array of opponents how essential it is to adjust your game to make sure you win more often against a weaker opponent. And I don't know what that means at all. And I understand there must be some like steering concepts like you're talking about. But a lot of the most like trivial ones I've had pointed out are like, well, don't give up too many points on a simple race and make them play out something more complicated, which makes a little sense to me, but I don't know if I buy it. You know?
Right. This is
Yeah.
exactly what I'm saying. Can you
Yeah.
do that or can't
Right.
you? I remember I
Okay.
played like, do you know Yossi Tsonen? You were saying in your commentary, oh, I didn't realize it. So he's been playing for years, but he's got a son called Moshe, maybe. And I played him in Monte Carlo in 2014,
Yeah.
and he
Okay.
seemed to like roll 6 5 twice on every game. And I was like, I felt, well, I felt, and I could be wrong, that, well, if he's going to just run, I can't exert my greater skill.
Yes.
I
I
might
think this
not
is
have been as,
100% the case. Yeah.
but I think most of these things can. So what I'm really saying is not whether or not they happen. It's more of an interface between our psychology and
Hmm.
believing whether they happen
Yeah.
and whether or not that belief can serve us. And for me, that's how it plays out. It's not just someone presenting you with a black and white sheet. These are statistics. We're not always going to believe them. We're going to kind of believe some and not the other, and then some are going to um, be useful. And
Right. Yeah. No, I think I agree wholeheartedly. I think what I love about the example is, like, I mean, I feel like that's kind of what I was saying with like this hypothetical 10 game match where somehow you just end up in a racing game every time. However you try to steer it, the dice put you there and your opponent gets the opportunity to just get there and you don't get a
sure,
chance to
sure,
play better. Like that can happen in
sure.
backgammon a lot, you know?
I remember I asked John Barnes,
Yeah.
once, like he'd just been to BMAP. So I said, how was it? And he said, no, I said, like, you played 2.7. He said, yeah, but it was all easy decisions. And I was like,
Yeah.
he played 2.7 over 6 matches. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah,
But his average isn't 2.7, so maybe his contention that it was easy decisions is probably fair enough. But the point being that it seems to be possible. I've played long sessions against XG, and sometimes you just get
yeah,
like the standard, very standard, like 5-1, double three, double five, run around to the 10 point,
yeah.
get over and over. And it's like, how many games do you need for the distribution to
Yeah. I mean,
level up?
like infinite, right? Like it's really we people I think very much struggle to comprehend how big those kinds of streaks can be. That you, I think it's at such a point where I think distribution of 300 experience points on BMAB is enough to matter quite a bit to like Mochi's title, for example. Like I think he's played enough and submitted enough to BMAB where he has a clearly best run of 300 and a clearly worst, and there's like enough of a difference there where it matters that he gets to take his best 300 experience points and have a lowest PR there. You know what I mean?
Wait, I don't understand. I never understood how it works. Can you just
Okay, yeah.
scrap? Can you scrap?
Yeah. So Backgammon Masters awarding body, you can go check out their website with titles. That's where Simon is awarded his Grandmaster title,
Yeah.
Grandmaster G3, for playing under a 4 in 300 experience points. But so the way they measure
No,
it,
no, 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 no. Actually, only I think the cutoff is 150. So you need
mm,
150.
there's some different paths, but
I
this,
played 250.
yeah,
I can't, I
okay.
think they changed it.
Yeah.
Well,
The
yeah.
standard well your average right now is a 3.75 or something like this. I looked it up.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you're like hundredths of a PR point behind Gaz Owen actually. He's a little bit better player
Right.
than you it turns out.
Oh dear.
Currently or something in the last 300. So I thought you'd like to have that information.
Yeah. Yeah.
But oh dear is a good reaction. But yeah, so the BMAP titles, the way you have to declare a tournament that you're going to submit all your matches for it and send it in. You'll have a PR. They'll run it on some analysis level in XG. And experience points are the number of match points in each match you send. So you play a 17-point match, you send your PR from it, that's 17 experience points. Doesn't matter if it was one game or if it was 34 games. Um, so in the long run, that should average out too. But so the point with this is that like if you submit 5,000 experience points worth of matches, actually I don't know what a high one on there. I think I'm like around 1,500 experience points or something like that, and I think 5,000 is like something like Steve Sachs might have submitted that many. Um, but across that kind of run, like you are, I think you can actually see some differences in like if you looked at this would be a good stat to ask BMAB for actually for like best 300 and worst 300 for players like a Steve Sachs. His game hasn't changed much across those 500 5,000 experience points either. He's just been playing since forever at a very high level, you know. But I bet you could see like a few tenths of a PR point difference in like best and worst in that
Oh, for
just
sure.
because these like 300 experience points is still less than you think, but
Yeah.
like we just talked about, that's still like
Do
a
you
little bit
know?
less than 20 17-point matches, which seems like, well, what bigger sample size are you going to ask for? You know?
So again, like another
Yeah.
kind of, it's just a theory, but I'm kind of convinced of it. But that when you are around a four, you can definitely fluctuate. So you can play 300 maybe at 3 point, maybe not 3.5, but maybe 3 point, like me.
Yeah.
But then, or this is kind of one of my fears.
Hmm.
And then I'll go back and play, and I'll just play because I'm not solid enough yet.
Hmm.
It's interesting. I am getting to that stage where I'm feeling very solid, but I can see how maybe a couple of months ago, if I'd have started playing, it's very possible that I could play 300
Mm.
and it would spring back up to like a 4.2,
Sure.
just because of the variety of decisions. I mean, I just want to say, not that, maybe just when I start talking about this, it's like, who gives a shit? Like, why do I get so like the life thing is so much more important? Why am I so? And I am, and I'm like, I maybe it's fine to be. I don't know, but I sort
Yeah.
of think to myself, why am I still a, completely obsessed by
Yeah.
this trying to be, just trying to be better than people.
I think
That's
it's
what it
like a
is.
one of those like you're asking the question in the wrong order. Like you're one of the best because you are one of those people. And like everyone up there, it's like that, right? Like the people that really want to grind down the PR and have the best number they can are the kind of people that have that kind of title, you know? Um,
They have this mindset that I have, you mean?
I think so. I don't know how you know, it's very difficult to get there without that mindset. It's a style of competitive mindset, I
I
think.
mean,
Yeah.
I play just to not that you're asking, but I'll play like on XG Mobile, like
Yeah.
at night, and I'll just play. And if I make a blunder,
Mhm.
I'm still kind of hurt in a way. Like I still get like it doesn't last as long as it used to. There's still like this moment of like, how can I do this? And then of course that's where the thought comes in, like, why am I why am I caring? And so in a way, like on a more positive note, I'm just trying to like steer away from that and just
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
more into like what I enjoy about playing.
I think
And
that's
I'm not going
something.
to say the
Yeah.
social element, which is very much part of it, but as far as the game is concerned, I
Yeah.
do love playing the game.
Mhm.
There's this kind of this
Yeah.
fluency, flow, this
Yeah.
like just from watching your matches that you commentated on, or it doesn't have to be yours, but just it's just this kind of um I can't think of the word, but it's sort of a beauty combined with a flow. Obviously, it's the way that the checkers can make nice patterns that you've seen before that you recognize, but it's the diet that it's not just when it's static, it's when it's always moving. As soon
Yeah.
as the dice are rolled, the
Yeah.
patterns change.
Yeah,
And
man.
the second thing I lied to that, all this is obvious, is that you can't ever make it up. You have to do it according to the dice. So you can't just kind of
Mm.
come along and put the checker on the 10 point just because you feel like it. It's
Yes.
very, I
Yeah.
guess that's a quality of all board games in a way. It
Yeah.
has to be legal. And
Yeah.
that structure is very appealing to me, that kind of.
Same. Yeah. And I think I love how many different branches there are in backgammon. Like you're saying, like it has to be according to the dice, which means we follow like a different path every time. And
Yeah.
it's very difficult to just come up with the same full game dice sequence twice. And
Yeah, you
then
it
after
maybe
that, are you going to play it exactly the same, right? And that can make
maybe
a big difference. Yeah.
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 Sorry to keep maybe think of two things. One, when
Yeah.
I did that back game analysis,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never got so many messenger messages from someone
Nice.
that
Okay.
night when I you
From
were
me?
like, what the fuck are you talking about? What is this
No.
bullshit? No, you didn't say that, but it
I was so
obviously it was
excited about it, right? Yeah.
it was only what I thought,
Yeah. Yeah.
Sec so that's an example of the game can suddenly very unusually be led. It doesn't always. It's very rare to get that kind of position. Be
Yeah.
maybe it's one in 1,000. I don't know. And then the second thing that is allied to that, I've just been doing like third roll positions. So every time I play, and I'm like, third roll,
Yeah.
third roll, and it seems to like just be helping my
Yeah.
understanding and just show me what I just
Yeah.
don't have a clue about.
Oh, that's beautiful. So that's where a lot of your study today is in third role positions, you're saying.
Yeah, so there's a Backgammon Studio. I don't know if people know about Backgammon Studio.
Oh, yeah.
It's a
Terry is
website,
great. Yeah.
and it has a database of training tracks that you can try and get the highest score, the highest score on. And one of the training tracks is third roll checker positions.
Hmm.
And so I'm working at the moment, or I've generally been working doing other stuff. So, but I do manage to get the time to do third roll positions at the same time. So I've got my work, and then
Nice.
like I try and I'm trying to beat Thomas Tenland's insane. He's got 53,
Yeah.
and if you try it actually,
53 out of what?
so as soon as you get one wrong, you have to start again. So he's got 53 third
Oh,
roll position questions in a row correct,
okay. Okay.
and
That's pretty high accuracy.
It's amazing, but it's just I don't know. There's just but it's it's like another game completely altogether when you do that and you try and
Yeah.
work out why this is better than that. So you look at like the
Hmm.
two top plays and then you start to realize why the second play is the second play. And even though it might only be like 0.02, that's still a big difference.
Yeah.
And when you, on the other hand, when you get like two wrong in a row, you start to realize that you simply just don't understand what the
Yeah.
priorities are in checker arrangement. You just don't understand what's important. And
Yeah.
it's kind of disheartening. But
Ooh. It can be. It can be. And I think I actually like put a lot of space in my study that way by focusing on the bigger stuff and just kind of like when I find small things like this, just letting it go. And if I really feel called to like figure out what the difference is that day, like sometimes that's the most fun thing to study.
yeah,
But like also accepting that that's like rarely going to be the thing that impacts my game the most. And there's other areas that I can focus on kind of. Um, but I love what you're saying about it is that like, especially in the early game, I think well, a lot of concepts run together. There's a lot of things going on that are mutually good to do. And so, like, for this reason, like, a lot of plays run very close. But then seeing, like, right where those little, like, where the breaking points are, like, happen, when duplication takes over because things are close, like, all of these kinds of ideas,
yeah,
like,
exactly. That's what
there's a
it
lot of,
is.
like, tactics versus strategy. And there is a huge depth of understanding to be gained from that for sure. That carries further into the game, too, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, it applies most likely in the early, but it's still like concepts that you can apply somewhere else. So
Yes.
yeah, if you're studying it the right way, I think that is the way to get like the deepest understanding of the game for sure. Is like, well, why? What would be the merit of each of
Well,
these, right?
well, to give you an example, one of the things that it helps with is which is really difficult, is hitting or not. So you have a hit or not decision.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you just have one in the middle game of a match and you look at it, yeah, you might be able to work out why it's wrong to hit and whatever. But you might as well go back to the one you had on the third roll and
Mm.
see why it was right
Yeah.
to make the anchor.
Hmm.
And regardless of scores, obviously, we're just talking at like a balanced score.
Yeah.
Um, then you learn much more clearly, I believe, what when you should be making an anchor, when you should be hitting. Simple. You don't need to make both sides have 3 point boards. You don't need to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You, um, I mean, I, I I had one the other day where it was like a 0.15 blunder to hit, and I hit,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was just the third. Yeah, I just didn't. So obviously, I didn't really. Without showing the position, it's a bit tedious. But the basic thing that I got from the position was that because I was up in the race, enough 6 pips at the beginning is enough.
Yeah.
There was no need to hit.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
that was my. It could be wrong. That was the conclusion that I
Yeah.
drew, and that was my nugget of learning. Um,
You should send me that position after the interview, and I'll do a video on it. I need
Yeah,
more
I
positions to
wish
go
that
through.
the other thing that I like, and I love Mochi and Kazuki for this, is that when I play, I can't always remember positions. But
Mm,
when I
yeah.
do remember positions, it feels very nice because it means that I really noticed and understood the key
Mm,
features.
yeah.
Conversely, when I don't remember positions, it means that I didn't really care or know about whether there was an extra checker on the 6 point or on the 8 point. And that also ties into third row positions because now, if you show me a backgammon board with a third row position, I can generally say how it got to that. I can give you the sequence,
Yeah.
presuming that the first and second row were kind of reasonably played.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's really useful. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. We're creating like chains. Like our brains like to understand things in sequences. And so now you have that. You
yeah,
can kind of see it as like, I remember this thing instead of like starting fresh and having like a full game of backgammon as the input, right? It's a sequence, and you know what's going on here. I'm ahead or down in the race, and my opponent tried to run or didn't.
Yeah,
All these kinds of things. Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's brilliant. I think what I find myself really curious about too, like I think you mentioned you're doing a lot of study on your own game too. I know you teach lessons and do some things on YouTube as well. I'm curious when you like work with students, is this the level that you're like working at with them as well, or like what
So
kinds of things
yeah,
do you like to teach them? Yeah.
it's interesting. What I think I'm worst at is understanding things from other people's perspective, and obviously teaching really helps that. So
Hmm.
I'm really bad at knowing that someone that's like an intermediate will not be able to know what I know.
Hmm.
I'm really bad at that.
Yeah.
The challenge for me is to, and I'm sure you've had this as well, is for us is to try and see it through their eyes.
Yeah.
So in short, like I I don't really I wait for people to tell me like what were you thinking, what do you have trouble with? So I prompt them to tell me what they're thinking, but I do struggle with, you know, knowing we're all suffering from our own twisted perceptions. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
that's the
that's it's so cool that you say that because like well, for one thing, I think that's like a nice strength that I have to lean on in teaching is that like I'm more recently a total noob like that, so I can kind of remember the things that I struggled to figure out that everyone else just knew. So I still have access to that in a way. You know what I mean?
maybe, yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's also that drives me. That's I like doing that better than like other teaching, and like most teachers that I talk to like to work with like pretty high level players and feel like they're developing their own game through this conversation and are getting better through it. And I always have
Yeah.
this weird like disconnect with that where I'm like, I don't think I'm getting any better teaching lessons. I think what I'm getting better at is teaching lessons when I do it. And I think you just kind of put words to that for me is that like what's really motivating to me is trying to find that language and figure out like how do I convey to a new player what this concept is and the right amount of it and not in a way where it like creates a bad habit, but I mean you have to omit something along the way, right? So like what is the right piece of information to give at the right time is kind of what coaching comes down to, you know? um, yeah, I don't know. I think I'd like to like I enjoyed writing the match play book and I'd like to write more books kind of from that place too. Like ideally of I think I told Ben in my last interview, like if I had to set a goal out with like lessons and teaching and all that, I think it would be cool to take like everyone out there, every like intermediate or advanced player or whatever in a tournament out there and get them feeling like comfortable enough that they could play open, you know? I think that's
But
like a cool teaching goal to me. I don't really aspire to show something like brand new to people and be like, I uncovered this thing about the third role that nobody knew before. I hope
yeah,
Thomas does that in his book. I hope to see that soon, right? Yeah.
that's just yeah, it's a temptation. Like I I probably for my sins then I do learn a lot from teachers. So I'm only teaching one guy, Paul. Shout out to Paul.
Hi, Paul.
And he's very, I mean, I haven't had a student that I haven't thought is brilliant.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I always think, well, why are they not playing every match at, let's say, a five?
Yeah.
And I honestly don't really know the answer to that question because when I teach them, they just know, like they know that they understand.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I obviously struggle with, like one knowing why they're not actually playing better. The
Yeah.
other thing is, like I said, I'm learning because maybe when I explain, I'm sort of the problem is that I'm explaining it kind of to myself,
Mm-hmm.
which is very sounds very selfish and probably is.
Mm.
Um, and by doing that, I actually understand the concept much better. It's not that I'm not answering or picking up on what. So let's say someone sends me matches.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go through the mistakes they make and obviously let them. do you want to concentrate on this decision or not? Or usually maybe he shouldn't do this. Paul kind of relies on me to kind of home in on the important decisions.
Yeah.
And since there are so many important decisions, like once it's very ad hoc. Like once what one time it's he there were two very similar cube decisions. And so I think what goes through my mind is like, oh, this is interesting. He's made two big blunders here, but I also might have passed, which was a blunder.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna go use this and do this. And that's selfish for sure, because I'm like helping myself. And I say to him, like, I'm just kind of your pet. Um, but
No, I think there's something brilliant to that though
that's
too.
kind of what goes
Yeah.
on with my
Yeah.
generally with the lessons. Like,
I think even when I try to like steer towards general concepts or something like that, a lot of the students that I work with, they still want what you're talking about. They still want to watch like to like work with someone while they teach themselves the position and pick up something that they didn't know about in that too, you know? Like that's for sure a learning experience. So like they're all different styles of it, right? I think there's like a level of play where there isn't anything else to do. Like if I'm trying to get a player to play better than a five, I don't think I mean, I can organize some topics in a way that I think is going to direct them through it. But at some point, what you need to figure out is just how to like think about the game as a whole and like what thing you're not thinking of in this position that you should be. And sometimes just exactly that kind of conversation that you're talking about is like the only way to get there. Or maybe that's people's like learning style too, you know? So it's like such an interesting thing to navigate. I'm just always curious about anyone else in the lesson space, just like what they're seeing and what works for them and what they gravitate toward, you know?
so Paul has said to me, like, isn't there like a rule for each
Oh yeah.
position? Like, all you need to do is just learn this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And then I think, oh shit, I must be the worst teacher. Maybe there is. And every so often, I have that kind of moment of panic.
Yeah.
And then we realized from our Evernote, our work with putting things on databases. So just to explain to people, Evernote is just a system that I use, that Nick uses
Hmm. Hmm.
to screenshot positions,
Yeah.
and you can then tag them.
Hmm.
So you screenshot your position, and then you manually tag the position
Did you get
according
started
to.
with that after our
Yeah, yeah,
conversation a
yeah,
while
yeah,
ago?
yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah,
You're liking it
yeah,
then. Oh, I want to hear
yeah,
about this. Yeah.
yeah. So, and then when you start doing that, you realize how many different types of positions there are, and then you can answer that kind of niggling question, which is there just a book that can just answer everything? Well, no, it would be 5,000 pages long
Yeah. Yeah.
if it answered every single position type.
Yeah.
Um, I
5,000
mean,
is a
there
dramatic underestimate.
maybe yeah, yeah, and it may be tagging. The important thing you realize is to be able to tag properly and
Yeah.
not duplicate your tagging. But even then, even if I'm tagging badly, there's just so many different types of
Yeah.
things that you need to learn,
Yeah.
and there's no way of. I don't see any way of distilling that any.
Sure. The tagging is the hardest part. I mean, I mentioned that in the video where I suggested that I use Evernote some, but and you learn something from trying to come up with those tags in those categories, you know?
Yeah,
And what I do think though is that for like maybe like a double digit PR player or something like this, that there probably is a distillation of ideas and rules and concepts and like high level strategic things where you could kind of enumerate and teach them all. And if someone applied all of those, they would play better and still get a smaller class of things wrong when they came up that we weren't able to explain yet. But like, you know what I mean? Like I'm really intrigued by this idea of like lopping off layers that way and not having to dive into like every position that arises. How do I get this one right? Like there's some
yeah.
that
I
you should just
mean,
get wrong, maybe,
yeah,
you know? Yeah.
maybe above like a 15 there is that, but even then
Yeah.
I don't think it's just a book. I think maybe people that get to 15 or 12, let's say,
Yeah.
they've read like maybe four books, so that's still quite a lot of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe there was duplication of information in,
Hmm.
but I don't know. I know that we know that there are people out there that do offer like what's the word? Not identikit, but pro forma teaching materials, and you go through this, and
Oh,
this.
like syllabus and lesson plans and things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that's
I
obviously
think
what I lack and what I'm not good at, and I don't have those materials. But I
sure.
maybe it's convenient for me to think this, but I don't know if they. I don't. I'm not sure how much they work. Maybe they do.
I think it depends. You give me a so there's a lot of different styles that I mean we've talked before about like the BLC. I taught with them for like a little while years ago. And they do have like a pretty structured syllabus and things they've come up together as like a group of teachers, which is really nice, you know? And so a lot of people love working through that, but then I've also gotten feedback from people that are looking for lessons elsewhere after that. They're like, I don't know if I want to go through a syllabus like that. I want someone to help me find the thing that I don't know and target that, you know? Which is more like what you do, I think, you know? And
Yeah,
so,
maybe it's just people. No,
yeah,
just no. Maybe people just don't want to do the work themselves, so they want the teacher to be able
yeah, it can go both
to.
ways, right? It's like, what is your level of engagement with learning? And I have also, like, I was so fascinated when you said that Paul wants this, like, this set of rules, right? I think as a teacher, like David Presser is the closest that I've seen to that. I think he might believe that there's a rule that can be applied in every like backgammon position and situation, and he
Yeah,
designs them
no,
out, and it's like
I
outrageous, like how formulaic his understanding of the game is. And I worked with
no,
him as a student for a long time. Yeah.
maybe I'm for sure not communicating clearly. I think there are, but I'm just
Hmm.
saying that there'll be like that once you count them all up, there's like tens of thousands of them.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think Paul was
Yeah.
just hoping that there would be like 500, but there aren't. Every time I revisit this question, it's just
Yeah.
like, no, I don't think it can be.
Well,
I haven't managed to distill it to.
sure.
I
As a
mean,
student, what I ran into with the rule idea was that at some point I had way too many rules and I didn't know how to grasp at the right thing in the right time. And what I was missing was like a strategic tie together of the game. And I couldn't find the place to learn that. You know, like it was very I didn't know what teacher or what book or could like communicate this. And I think what really finally cemented it for me was just playing speed gammon a ton on Galaxy and then reviewing those matches and like when did I make a 300 error and how on earth was I looking at this thing instead of this thing? Like why is that the part of the position that jumped out at me and why was that so wrong? And just focusing on that for like 2 years, I feel like all of a sudden I saw the strategic tie together and I didn't have that issue anymore.
right.
You know what I mean?
And then that
Yeah.
kind of just in that example, it shows you that it's sort of evidence that there is no, you can't just like learn the 500 rules. You have to go through some sort of protracted
Maybe. Yeah.
um
Maybe there's
trial by.
500 rules that come out of that do lop off a lot, you know? And I'm this is probably like the next book I'll try to write. So I'm very attracted to that. And I think like the big categories that I haven't heard people talk about much that I think make a huge difference are exactly what you were talking about with anchoring versus hitting actually, which is that like the opening position is like a different game of backgammon than the middle game and the end game. When you have a 1 point board, all the rules are
Yeah,
different than a 3 point board and a 5 point board. And you need to sort of address them and study them differently. And I think but like a very simple thing that helps there is that the priority in the early game to me then is all strategy. And there are times where tactics show up and like decide between close things. But as you progress towards the end, I see this move towards tactics where like when you're playing against a 5 point board and you're considering whether you should leave a shot or not, the question is more about how many shots do I give that will immediately lose the game? And I can see the end of the game already. And I just have to count some things. Where in the
yeah,
beginning of the game, if I spread out, well, maybe it'll help me build and maybe it'll follow this game plan. If I get hit, I just get recirculated and then I've got a different focus. And it's never as decisively clear unless it's like, should I make the 5 points or do nothing, right? Like then, well, this long term asset, like you have to lock that up and just have it for the
yeah. I
rest of the
mean,
game. Yeah.
I think you can go further and say you can't
Yeah.
make a big blunder with strategy. It's very difficult. I mean, I didn't know that until you just kind. I just that
Mm.
followed on
I
from what
actually,
you
I
just said. I don't.
think I think
You
maybe in
can't.
the middle game is where you can make the biggest blunders with strategy. If you choose to prime instead of blitz,
Oh, okay, yeah,
race
okay.
instead of blitz,
So
some of these
excluding
kinds of things. Yeah, yeah.
excluding that, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. Maybe I'm thinking of the opening game where it just
It is tough.
there are
Yeah,
differences, but it
sure.
doesn't matter.
Well, the opening roll is the best example, right? Like all of our
You know,
aces, you can split, you can slot, you can play two down, you can play two up,
yeah. As
and
long
and
as
they're
you
not far
hit
off. Yeah, yeah,
as long as you hit a checker when it's there to be hit,
yeah,
you're probably not gonna.
yeah,
I'm not gonna say you're not gonna make a blunder, but you're not gonna make a three like a very big blunder, which you can do when
yeah,
um if you leave an anchor, for example, in the middle game
yeah,
when you shouldn't.
yeah. I completely agree with that.
Or if you pay now, pay now is often a big source of. Usually, it's right to pay later, which is a. I hate. I was always against these rules, which is why it
Yeah,
took me like 5 years to realize basically don't pay now. But if you basically pay now when you shouldn't,
yeah.
it can be very bad
I like this
because you
arc
might
too,
never.
though. Yeah. Like,
Sorry.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to finish your thought.
No, that's it. It, I was just saying, like, if you pay now, the reason it can be a big blunder is because you might never have to pay,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
being hit can be very bad.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, just I'm just picking up on generally
yeah,
on what you're saying about tactics
yeah,
and I basically when you've both got much stronger boards, it's the cost is much greater
yeah,
to to be hit. It's
yeah.
just
So I have actually noticed an interesting arc with the pay now, pay later too, where very early in the game you can pay now a lot, right? Maybe you do leave an anchor within the right
you leave the
circumstances.
midpoint with a 5-4.
Sure, all these kinds of things,
Not
right? The
the
18
bar
point.
point.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
bar point. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the classic example. When do you leave the bar point with the 5-4? In the very beginning with the big race lead, you do, and then you just never pay. And then
You
in the
never
very
pay.
end of the game when it's your last chance and you just have to, right?
Yeah.
So there's like
That's the
there's this
no
arc
and
too.
those are the
Yeah.
difficult the
Yeah.
third example is the most difficult when it's actually right to pay and not paying can be
Yeah.
very bad
Yeah.
because
I
it's
think
your last chance.
yeah. I have this sense that like classifying the game into a flow of like early, middle, and late and understanding what stage you're in and what kinds of concepts come up in those stages is like very helpful for navigating some of these things, right? Like I can think about paying now in the beginning, almost maybe as like a very level one rule I never do in the middle. And then in the end I can think about it again, right? you know? So I don't know. I think there's something there.
Yeah.
There's something there. I'm gonna do my best with that. I hope it doesn't turn into a 5,000 page book, but then it'll just be a lot of books.
Yeah.
Well, cool, man. So when did you start your YouTube channel and start making like position analyses and things like that on there?
So I think it was around beginning of 2020.
Oh, COVID.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Wait, how can it?
I
If it was because of COVID, then you'd be sure. So,
it wasn't because of COVID. It was actually so I, I always wanted to do it. There were a few things that I w- for quite a time I wanted to do stand-up comedy.
oh, nice. Okay.
And back in 2019, I kind of revisited that.
Yeah.
And I found at the time that it was quite traumatic, but I think my conclusion is that I wasn't ready to do that because still too self-conscious, still um, lots of cliched ways of saying it, but thin skin, not thick-skinned enough. And
Okay.
I kind of rebounded from that. And then I think something in the like the will to perform sort of came out in, well, I'm much more comfortable with backgammon because I know I'm pretty good at it. So
Hmm.
if people criticize like what I do on videos in backgammon, it's not going to hurt me enough. And I think one of the things that a lot of people struggle with, and I probably more than most, is like what people think.
Mm.
Like it was a big tyranny, a big thing over my head.
Hmm.
And so I got to the point, like in my self-development, when I just didn't care enough anymore about what people thought,
Yeah.
that I just started the YouTube channel. And it's amazing, like people just don't care. Like, sorry, not people don't care. People don't care. Yeah, people don't care about you. Like,
Yeah.
they're not thinking about you. And like, obviously we
Yeah.
know this, but as you get older, you get really, maybe you get much more intimate with that people are just not you think, or I have long periods of my life where feeling like I was in the spotlight, but no one gave a shit about Simon Simon Barget
Right.
to my,
Yeah.
no one. And so that's a relief. That's a massive relief. You can go off and do whatever you like and no one's looking.
Right. Yeah. The people that want to look are looking in, which is good, right? Then
Yeah,
you,
you
yeah.
you just do what you want to the people that you want, but most people are not
Yeah.
going to stop and, oh, what's this guy? Oh, he's got a YouTube channel. Like I've really pimped and like promoted my channel. I've still not got 1,000 subscribers. You're quite well known, or really well known
Hmm.
in the backgammon circles, and you've got like what 400 and I can't remember something.
Something like
It's
that. Yeah.
still, it's not, it doesn't seem like it's enough, right?
Help
It's
us
not
fix
fair.
that, by the way. You can subscribe to both of us and like
Yeah,
this video.
and
Yeah.
I'm sure I can just increase my levels of production and everything, but like there's loads of people competing, all sorts of YouTube channels, and
Yeah.
backgammon's a niche thing. And I'm just like, it got to a point in my life. I don't know if this is answering the question at all, but I just wanted to go off on one and just say it's just nice to like not give a shit about, not have expectations and
Yeah.
not care what people think.
Hmm.
And yeah, really not, again, repeating myself, just not have any.
Hell yeah.
My backgammon channel's never gonna,
Yeah.
um, it doesn't matter what people.
Yeah. No, that largely resonates for me too in how I got started. Like what was motivating to me was like when I had an idea of a video that I thought would be interesting and people would want to see or maybe were asking for in some way, not directly, but like what can I show people that would be useful? And not like this idea of like how do I have a massive YouTube channel with the right
Yeah,
audience and like all this support.
yeah,
I'm like kind of moving towards that a little bit now. I think there's a lot that could be useful for like doing more commentary if I had like more like a larger engagement and stuff. So I'm thinking in those terms a little bit now. But still, like I'm most curious for you, like I guess like what those videos were that you like really like what did you really want to share when you started making videos, you know? Did you already have this like I want
no,
to
I
okay.
think you've kind of hit on it. I just wanted to kind of show off a little bit and get attention, I think,
Yeah, yeah.
and show people how good I was at backgammon, because I think I probably felt that uh, I was still looking for something from people, and I think it
Mm.
nipped it in the bud.
Nice, man.
But
Okay.
I still think, allied to that, I'd still do quite like um sort of entertaining, which I don't think is a pure, as much of a pure ego thing as just wanting attention. I just quite like,
Yeah.
I do this I have like 6 or 7 people watching when I play speed gammon,
Yeah.
and I just maybe I like, just sort of entertaining, or it's like a radio show or something. It's just very
Yeah.
minimal. So no, there was no magnanimity, and not at all. I wasn't trying to like be be charitable or anything. I was just doing it for my own, um just, and I think it really, like I said, it kind of killed it, it stopped it in its tracks. So I don't
Mm.
really,
That's cool, man.
help me grow up maybe.
Awesome. Are there any videos like I was just browsing the channel and I saw you like covered some different topics and like teaching points and things like that. It looks like you're doing more of like the Galaxy Academy blitzes now, where you're talking
Yeah.
about like live
So
streams where you play. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I do all the things that you kind of identified are a bit kind of, um me, like I was trying to show all these things that I knew that other people didn't. Again, like one of my shortcomings, just like thinking I knew something that other. So I think some of the videos were like that.
Yeah.
That's not such a bad thing, because I think there
No.
were things that I maybe had known about. Like I did something about 3 away, 4 away, like how
Okay.
you can actually double at 3 away in a
Mm.
holding. which everyone kind of knows now, but
Yeah.
and is in your book. But like, I just I kind of got suckered into like if I thought I knew something, I wanted to
Yeah.
to show off about it. So a lot of videos were like that, but now it is just
Well,
um
sound like
to
yeah. I
was
was
that
just gonna say that sounds like super valuable stuff for people to like study from still though, like
hopefully, but I'm
yeah.
just fessing up the motivation is probably
Yeah,
self just
sure.
self-centered
I
bullshit.
I appreciate it though. I think this like realness and willing to like examine where your motivations are coming from. I feel like we got like straight into this in Marbella somehow. Like we went to like dinner and like, who are you? You're Simon, cool. And then we were just talking like this the whole time. It was like, how did I
Yeah,
meet
yeah,
this
yeah.
guy?
Maybe went too far, but yeah, I mean,
No, that's why
I
like
think
why I
my
was like, this
attitude
is gonna
that
be a good
it's
friend.
fine.
Yeah.
Was that?
I said to me that was like, this is a person that's gonna be a good friend for sure, right? Like it was very easy to sit down and
Who's
talk to
this
this
weird
guy.
guy? No, I think like it's fine. Maybe, yeah, not you don't need to, we don't need to be too self-critical. Like, yeah, we can all be a bit ego. It's just the trick is not to get sucked in too much to that in its own. I
Sure.
still remember a conversation we had about colors walking
Ah.
up the hill. I was like, what the fuck's this guy like? I couldn't even follow. I was like, what?
This is not the first time you've told me. Like, can you try to explain that again?
I was like, what are you
But this
talking
is like
about?
meme
Like
stuff.
I said
Yeah.
something about the color of bougainvillea, like, and I maybe because most people they just don't say anything, but you were like, no, because this, that, and I was like, oh,
Right. I actually wanted to think about it. I'm still fascinated by this concept. If you haven't, like, I mean, someone wrote an article about this somewhere. I don't even know what to link but to. But it was about like cultures that are able to distinguish different shades of green, and like what I take from this and things like that is just like how completely our language colors our experience, right? Maybe we can apply this to backgammon lessons too if we want. If we really want to get out there. But like if I don't have words for different shades of green, and I just have green, then I very quickly start categorizing those as green in my head, right? And I kind of lose like and it's hard for me to
yeah,
notice that there's different ones and that they're like so clearly different. Where it's very easy for me to notice that green and orange are quite a bit different, but like really they're like degrees of difference on a spectrum, right? Like they like you could think of it as a numerical if you want. Like
ah,
green
yeah,
is,
yeah. Now it reminded me. Yeah,
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 and that sounds right. Yeah, it's yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. It's like fascinating to me that like the
There's no
language
such
we
thing as
choose
green. Is that,
also true. Yeah. I mean,
you know,
I
I
guess how
mean,
do you
it's
want
just
to?
a
Yeah.
word. I
Right.
mean,
Everything's just words. That's also my favorite. I love.
okay, right.
Like I don't know
When
if
I
this
get
is.
into these
Yeah.
conversations, it makes me realize how utterly stupid I am, and I feel bad about myself for being, yeah.
We're just word animals, man. What can you do? We're like the ones that figured those things out, for better or worse.
Mm.
But cool, man. So your channel, you're still like entertaining people and
Yeah,
doing
well,
like the
it doesn't.
Academy
I
blitzes.
can't get
Yeah.
it to work.
Oh,
It's
okay.
screwed up.
Oh no.
Maybe OBS. I used the platform that I was using to broadcast is called OBS, and
That's what I'm using now. Yeah.
it didn't work
Mm-hmm.
once. And I was like, okay, so stream just kind of shut down. And then I tried another stream a week later, and it still didn't work.
Hmm.
And I kind of, but at the moment I live with someone. I've got a flatmate, so I don't really want to be disturbing her with videos. And also I've been working, but I'm sure I'll come back to it.
Oh, cool, man.
The best moment I had was when I kind of stole the commentary on the World Championship in 2020. Like no one was doing it, and I just kind of
Oh
I
yeah.
you know streams. It seems like it should be a different sniped. Well, anyway, stream sniped. It seems like it should be a different word.
Yeah.
I I and I quickly sent an email to Rory saying, "Look, is this okay?" And he said, "Fine,
Yeah.
whatever."
Cool, man.
Um, and I had 200 watchers. But to be honest, when it's just like a few watchers, I'm not really. expecting. It's just it's just a kind of thing that I
Yeah,
like doing.
yeah.
But maybe maybe it's coming. Maybe I feel it's coming to the end of its
Oh, okay,
shelf
okay.
life.
Yeah. We gotta have a YouTube channel retirement party then. Before we jump off
Why
there.
you retiring your?
No, I'll join yours. I'm saying. No, I'm working hard on mine now. I think.
Oh, you mean just for me? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If that's where it's going. No, I
No, I
think
mean,
I'm trying
when
to.
you say that, I wish there was a way that I could just kind of like bump up your. I don't know what exactly would translate as to success for you, but sure, obviously subscribers is the main one, and
Yeah, yeah,
it'd be
yeah,
lovely for you to have like 10,000.
yeah,
But it's so difficult to like when you consider Backgammon Galaxy is the main.
yeah,
I think Mark's got like 17.6, something like that from memory.
yeah. There's like small steps on the way. I'd love to, like the 1,000 subscribers goal you mentioned. Like I'd love to be there too. I think that's where you start to have like monetization options, and like YouTube treats it as a real channel at that time or something like that, along
Maybe
with
they
some other
improve
things.
the algorithm. Maybe they improve
But
your bump up on the up. I've
right,
always thought that
yeah,
you get paid like the most minimal. Not
yeah,
that I'm looking for it.
yeah.
Like maybe like the equivalent of 1 cent for every 1,000 views or something like that.
Yeah, it's almost nothing. So that's not like really the goal. It's
But
just
it's
sort
just
of like
that
a stair step in reach. But
yeah,
but yeah, those are the steps along. Like there's 1,000 and there's a couple channels there around that. I think like a next level is like 1 to 5 or something like that. Is like now you have as big of a reach as like an individual has, with the exception of like Mochi and Galaxy and a couple things like this, right? And then
it's
like
possible.
yeah, the
Yeah,
last step is that like well, not the last step, but the next step from there is the 15 to 20,000 is like the biggest in the backgammon space now. And then Michi's got this goal out there of like I want to have 1 million subscribers or something like that. How do I get to like a real YouTube channel level with backgammon? So whatever is after 20,000 is very interesting to me too. But they all happen in like little steps like this, right? So just getting to like 1,000 I think would be cool. And I'm trying to work toward that by having more like my only idea right now, you can tell me what you think of it too, is just like having more like regular expected content on there. Like I'm just doing position analyses like every Monday and Thursday. I'm gonna try to have interviews on Fridays. Try to have like streaming on some day of the week too, and just like so people have a reason to come back more. You know? Yeah, that's where I'm at with it right now. Oh, you got muted, man. I can't hear you. I lost your sound. This would be a cool way to wrap up the interview. Well, your light changed a little bit there. That was cool. This is a sign, Simon. I can't hear you, man. I think I know we could like go on for a lot longer than this too. It's been like a super inspiring conversation for me, and I don't know, it's just like grounding and level-headed to like talk to you about backgammon and everything like that too. I appreciate it. I hope people learn something about luck and dice and enjoyment of the game from it too. But I really appreciate you having you on. I hope a bunch of people come over to your YouTube channel, watch videos, and subscribe, so you feel like you have to do it some more. You don't have to retire it, man. But I'm glad that things are going well in life right now, and yeah, I'll be back with more of these soon. So let me know who you want me to interview next too. Oh, am I waiting for you to say goodbye? I still don't hear you. Can you do sign language? Can you write on a
yeah.
piece of paper? Oh, there you are. You're here.
Sorry about that. My third screen just it kind of I have it routing to an iPad. Can you hear
Ah,
me?
okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Perfect time to stop because otherwise I'll go on forever. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, and I wish you luck with your channel.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. When will I see
I
a
can't hear you.
turn? Oh, you can't hear
Yeah, I
me now.
can.
Oh, it's okay. I was gonna ask
It's just
when.
not in sync. It's all.
Yeah, I might be coming to do some commentary in the UK next year or something. So I hope I get to see you at a tournament soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Rumor has it. We'll see. Well, there's
Okay.
asking around. I don't know how that'll go. We'll see. But yeah, yeah. I'm hoping. Yep. Well, cool, man. Talk to you later, Simon. And thanks everybody for
Okay.
watching.